Hello, Irish fans, and welcome to Dome and Domer, the oldest Notre Dame football podcast on the planet. Joining me tonight, Ed Jordanek, also joining from NENation.com, Mike Coffey, and unfortunately, who's not joining us is a guy who needs to explain a few things to us as he injected himself into the conversation on Monday, and that would be none other than Pete Bavacqua. So, Ed, I'll start with you. 10 weeks ago, 11 weeks ago, I assume Pete was there at the game. I mean, there were boos coming down from the stands after the NIU game. And then, rightfully so, some of our viewers pointed out it wasn't the Louisville game. It was the Little Sisters, the Miami of Ohio game, where more boos were coming down. And out of nowhere, Pete has been absolutely quiet as a mouse since the day we hired him. But he's now injected himself into this moment in the biggest game of the life. Is this a Charlie Weiss moment, or is he jumping ahead of himself? What are we doing giving Freeman a huge extension and he hasn't even won a single playoff game? I mean, what is going on in this world? Do you not have to play? Do you not have to prove yourself anymore, or what?
Are you?
I'll let you take first shots at this.
Is your tongue in your cheek, or
I'm being facetious. I'm mad at myself that I didn't.
I was going to say I'm ready to completely disagree with you, but
I should have totally predicted this after the NIU loss. Instead of me coming back and saying, "Hey, man, I think he's going to turn it around. He's a good guy," I should have said, "Oh, by the way, how about I guarantee you that he gets an extension by the end of the year?" Needless to say, all right, I'll start with the trick question, Ed. Who is happier about the extension? Freeman's wife or Ryan Day?
Well,
don't forget Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly have not really given much thought to the extension. I mean, I think it's just, it's they think they've got their guy. I think he's a really good cultural fit, and he's had success. I mean, 30-9, or whatever it is pretty good. And I think that they think that he fits the times, in terms of the way he relates to players and in terms of his sort of willingness to. He doesn't seem at all. I mean, look at the guys that are leaving the profession, or, the guy from Wake left today, and, Saban and Dabo's been resistant. And, it's sort of like us and our kids with technology, right? I mean,
yeah,
we use it, but it's not sort of like, we've had to adapt to it. Whereas our kids have grown up with it, and they're absolutely not sort of intimidated or turned off by it, or they just look at it as just another thing to deal with and solve, and they just go at it. I think Freeman looks at NIL and collectives and the portal and all of that in the same way. And I think that's a really valuable quality to his makeup and his mindset. He's uber competitive, and those are just more games that he has to try and win. And it's in terms of coaching, it's really becoming a young person's sport. And I also think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it helps Notre Dame in the sense that, it's going to have to be an incredibly attractive situation, I think, for either Mike Denbrock or Al Golden to leave, because they are older and they are seeing the crap that Freeman has to put up with. And they look at it as crap, and he just looks at it as, kind of part of the job. And I think he's probably learning to be a pretty good delegator. So, I don't know if any of the Ohio State stuff. I think Ohio State would be crazy to get rid of Ryan Day, and somebody's got to, take a stand in terms of these athletic directors and university presidents. I don't think, him going to the pros or the Bears or any of that stuff. That's just stuff that gets made up to sell papers and clicks, without any sort of indication of interest from him. So, I think Bavacqua was savvy, and he's a smart business guy, and he's like, why not sign him for $9 million a year now before I've got to pay 12? Because
exactly.
That's next year.
Before, I'll tell you what, if he's sharp and he's smart and he sees what's about to happen, and I'm not jinxing us, but Hey, it's not that far-fetched to win Friday night. Granted, IU's tough, good coach. Coach of the year, Signelli. Give him all the credit in the world because he is, and he deserves it. But, you get by IU, you're facing Georgia, who's depleted a bit. Georgia's Georgia. They got talent. They can reload. Stockton's a 5-star. He's not some kid that's a 3-star that we don't know anything about. But you get by Georgia, and who knows what you're going to see on the other side. I mean, I assume it'll be Oregon, but maybe not. You don't know. Nobody knows. We don't know what we'd see. I mean, this, like you say, it could very well be that now's the time to do it, as to wait and see what happens, and you're dealing with a national championship, and then you're going to re-sign the guy.
I think it's a smart move, even if they lose Friday night.
I agree. No, I'm 100% behind it. I think it was a smart move. Freeman's the real deal. If you guys, I don't know if you guys got a chance, but if you do, you should read the article that Riley Leonard put up. It's really well. I think it gives great insights. And I think his conversation with Freeman the day after the NIU loss is very revealing. It goes to show that Freeman is the kind of guy who knows how to handle today's world. And that is, you don't bring the kid in and what the F are you doing on the field yesterday, right? That's not the conversation you have. And the fascinating piece was the conversation he had with him was, hey, Riley, you're going to be happy that happened yesterday. You're going to grow as an individual way more than you would have. And I don't want to go off topic here, but it just the parallels for me were pretty cool from a spiritual standpoint, because oftentimes your faith grows when you go through trials. You don't really truly grow in your faith unless you go through a trial. And I think Freeman was saying the same thing to Riley is, hey man, if you really want to grow as a human being and as a football player, you got to you got to go through the worst of the worst. And when you do that, you come out on top, as long as you have the right attitude and the right response to that. So
isn't that kind of in the Baltimore Catechism, like that if you increase your faith and fix a hitch in your throwing motion, that everything's going to be okay?
Yeah, carry the cross. How do I get around that? How do I not carry?
No, carry the Howard cross. That's the cross.
There we go.
So, Coffee, I mean, I gotta assume you were pretty excited and ecstatic that
I was. And we did have a couple people on our board who expressed the
Charlie Weiss moment.
Well, yeah, kind of. I think part of it is, and I know there are fans out there who said, don't give him a raise. He hasn't proven anything yet. And I don't agree with it, but I see from a logical perspective where they arrive at that conclusion. It's not like it's a bad faith argument, someone who's just trying to be negative. They're pointing out, hey, we're paying this guy a lot of money. I look at it two ways. Number one, they say, oh, it's a 6-year extension. Well, it's really 4, because he still has 2 years left on the deal. Yeah, so he'll just get paid more for those 2 years. Second, if this is what the market bears, then this is what the market bears. And good coaches are worth what they're getting paid. No, we as fans, and actually the players, everybody involved in this entire enterprise has spent the last 2 seasons prior to this one watching Marcus Freeman grow as a coach and make, God knows, some pretty bad mistakes and stuff that might leave you scratching your head. I mean, I can't claim the high ground here. I know people I was at a party where a cousin of mine was getting an award, and my cousin Dan McGrath, who used to be the sports editor at the Trib, he and I, when we get together, we inevitably were talking about Notre Dame. And I confess, I don't know if Freeman, at that point, going into Georgia Tech, I didn't know if Freeman was the guy or not. But there's nothing I've seen that says he's definitely not the guy. We shouldn't extend him 4 years and pay him more, especially when whatever is in that contract, there's language that says, as someone said on our board today, if Notre Dame wants Marcus Freeman to leave and he doesn't want to, they will pay him money and it will happen. If Marcus Freeman wants to leave and Notre Dame doesn't want it to happen, he'll pay them a lot of money. I mean, nowhere is it said Marcus Freeman definitely will be our coach for the next 6 years. For people who are all up in arms about that. Personally, I hope he is the coach for the next 6 years because everything, Brandon, you said is 100% correct. He can relate to he has the proper temperament, not only to lead young players today, not only to relate to young players today, but he can create an atmosphere, a team atmosphere where everyone can stay focused, stay energetic. I mean, look how they've played pretty much almost nonstop since that. I mean, granted, a bad NIU loss in Miami, Ohio wasn't that great a game, but every game they seem to get better and better and better and better.
Well, I think, I mean,
got to reward that.
It's obvious they've been around the guy, right? In the third year, you pretty much know what you got. Mm-hmm. So it's not hard to figure out after the third year. They know what they have in Marcus Freeman. They like what they see, and I think it's a great move on their part. Mm-hmm. I do think there's a lot of positives, especially in the current environment we're in with the transfer portal. One, how Freeman has handled keeping the team together as he's brought in. There have been significant contributions by the transfers that he's brought in. I mean, Riley Leonard's one of them, but Bo Collins, Mitchell, there are significant Clark. There are guys that he's brought in that have basically gotten playing time above the guys that Freeman recruited. And yet right now today, as far as I know, there's no major transfers out at the moment. I mean, that could still happen.
I think Notre Dame is the only CFP team, if the article I read is correct. They're the only CFP team where no one is left. Everyone is still there.
Yeah, at the moment.
Backups, front ups, everybody.
Yeah, and so good. All right, well, cool. Let's transfer to the game a little bit. I do think another positive thing in a weird sort of way is the way the defense ended the field on the USC game. I kind of think, as crazy as it sounds, it's almost better that they had that debacle, if you want to call it that, in terms of Golden's attitude and his comments that he's made so far since that game about how they need to be better, how he personally needs to be better. And they're going up against a team who I think actually has maybe as good, maybe not as dynamic of a passing offense, but you could make the argument a more skilled quarterback who's got better accuracy than the kid at USC. And obviously he's proven it. Now, he didn't have a great game against Ohio State, but I don't think you can put all that on him. But in any event, I think
special teams did them in against Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, that fumbled punt changed the game.
Yeah, not that they would have won without those special teams mistakes, but because of them, they didn't have a chance.
They didn't have a chance. That's exactly right. And IU got the football to start out. Any team that's not hard-nosed would not go the length of the field and score a touchdown in the shoe at Ohio State. I mean, you just don't do that on the opening kickoff. So clearly this is a mentally tough team. And I think it bodes well that the defense has got an axe to grind to do better than what they did on their last outing.
Yeah.
I
think they were tired going into a little bit of tired legs, and it showed. The other thing is that I was kind of yelling at the TV. I think we all were. I think Golden was a little stubborn, and he kept. Me, the game Friday night is give up the yards between the 20s, play really good red zone defense, force field goals, blitz selectively, and smartly. I don't think that, sort of like the USC bring the house every single down. This quarterback is too good. This offensive line is as good or probably maybe a little bit better than USC's. Like you said, its receivers aren't as dynamic, but there's like 5 or 6 of them that really know how to catch the ball.
Yeah, they're great at meeting the ball at the point. Yeah, I agree.
They're probably not as good of a running team. I mean, USC, we didn't get their best because what's his name, Woody Marks went down or whatever. But it's just a really well coached, really good offense, and the defense has to play better. They just have to play better, and they will. And a couple takeaways wouldn't hurt either.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, and I know this is a cliche with every game, but the turnover battle is going to be huge. Because I think if Notre Dame doesn't turn the football over, it's going to be a real tough ask for IU to match them for 4 quarters and pull it out with a win. If they can shorten a couple fields and steal a couple turnovers and put the pressure on us, I think that's where IU is going to have its best chance is to force some of those situations and create that. But
Is the
again,
line
I
still
think that
8.5 or what is it? Do we know?
7.5 was the last I saw, but I
Yeah,
haven't
I think
looked.
it's still 7. It's still 7.5. I think.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
kind of staying put. But for me, Coffee, I would say the key is if Notre Dame can get up by 2 scores, they're going to control from that point forward. If it's a tight game and we're going into the fourth quarter, that's when anything can happen. A tip pass, we're man coverage, and all of a sudden it's the fluke play that happens, and oh my God, we're now chasing points.
Yeah, I think the concern I have with this game, if I do have one, is this is a game where Notre Dame probably is more talented overall. I don't know how much of a coaching advantage, at least from the head coach position. I know Signetti, he's got more experience. He's certainly brought the right guys in. I don't know, however, if I don't know if I really believes they can win. I know a lot of their fans are just kind of like, hey, I'm going to this game because chances are we're not going to New Orleans or whatever. I mean, that's, that is what it is. But I I I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome a very, very big. This is arguably a bigger stage than the Ohio State game was. And on top of it, there's a certain level of, I think, accomplishment on their part. I mean, they made the playoffs. They were picked to finish, what, 7th or 8th in the Big Ten? And here they are. I mean, they're not hosting a playoff game. As much noise as Cincinnati's been making about, oh, we should be hosting Notre Dame. They're in the playoffs. They're playing like in probably they'll play for the biggest television audience that they've played for all year in the really tough situation. And I don't know. I could see that while I do think that they're well coached enough to be better than the sum of their parts, Andy's blocked a lot of punts this year. So if Ohio State can block them, maybe Notre Dame can too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I have a lot of respect for Signelli. I just think he's the real deal. I don't think he's some aberration. I think he's capable of getting his players up. I think he'll play in the moment. Again, once you go through the fire, like once you experience Ohio State and you kind of feel like you choked, the stage won't be that way this second time around. You're going to remember that, all right, we've gotten down before. So if they do get down a score to Notre Dame, they've had that experience at Ohio State where they've done that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I personally, I think it's going to be a closer game than the 7.5 point spread.
I do too. Yeah, I do too.
I think it'll be a closer game. I think Notre Dame at the end of the day will eke it out because they have the better athletes. They have the better team at the moment. They have the better strengths against the strengths of IU. I think our running game will be a difference in the game, assuming we don't turn it over again and give them some short fields. But I just don't see IU with Riley Leonard executing as a running QB, not so much as throwing the football, but as a running QB. I just don't see IU handling that for 4 quarters and being able to match us score for score is my gut. But my gut instinct is this is going to be a 31-28 Notre Dame win. Mm-hmm. And hoping that it's 31-20. I'd take that all day long.
I've been looking at my pick all week in our contest, just trying to decide if I want to keep it or not. And I think I am going to keep it. I said 45-17.
Oh, man.
I use a talented pro, but they have not seen a defense like Notre Dame so far this year. Meanwhile, Notre Dame's seen a couple defenses as good as
I think
Indiana's, and
Michigan
they're
was
playing
pretty.
at home.
Michigan's front four are pretty stout. They're pretty. I don't know if I'd go as far as front seven.
And Indiana had a lot of problems scoring at home against that defense.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I look at the end of the day. I mean, it's going to be a great football game.
no
It's
doubt.
going to be a great environment. I get nervous with us being at home because I think there's so much more distractions than there are when you're traveling and playing away. It just seems like we're a better focused team on the road this year. I mean, in my own mind, that's just what I see. But in any event, what's your prediction, Ed? What do you think?
I'm gonna say 35-30, but it's a late touchdown from IU that gets them to 30. Yeah, I think both teams are going to actually play pretty well.
I do too.
I think there's a decent chance we'll look back on Saturday night and it'll be the best game of the four. But
it could be.
It could be. But
I got a good feeling about SMU myself, but I guess we'll see.
We'll definitely be rooting for him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And where's LSU playing again? I can't remember. Was the Dump Me Out Bowl or whatever?
I don't even know. SMU scares me a little bit, quite honestly, though, I will say, as a matchup. It's one of those weird things where he's an electric kid. He's legit. He's the real deal. And it's not like we've torn it up against running backs this year. So I don't know. That could be interesting.
Not SMU. You're talking about Boise.
Oh, I'm talking about Boise State. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Boise State. Yeah, my fault.
Yeah, no doubt.
That matchup would make me. That would make me a little nervous.
Yeah, I think sort of the I think one of Freeman's strengths this year is he's and I think Northern Illinois really helped with this. He seems to be able to operate week to week in a really really positive manner. You know what I mean? I really think that it's not just all coaches say, oh, well, this is, we're only thinking about this team, it's all about this week. It's all, it's a 1-game season, all that stuff. But I think that's sort of evident in the way that they prepare and go about their business. And, haven't they scored on, just about every opening drive this year? I think they've come out, but IU is very good at that too. You could tell they're well coached and well prepared. They made Ohio State look kind of silly on that first drive. Then Ohio State adjusted and some of their athletic advantages took over. But yeah, I think Mike Coffey is right in terms of Cignetti having perhaps definitely having an advantage over Marcus Freeman. But Golden and Denbrock's job is to make sure that Marcus Freeman's coaching acumen doesn't even enter into the calculation. Right?
That's exactly right. Yeah,
he doesn't have to make any tough calls or any difficult decisions. So so let's
from the assistant standpoint, you give the nod to Freeman all day long on that, and with Dylan McCullough as well, who by the way is not leaving us to go to Ohio now.
What was he going to do?
Well, they elevated the interim coach to now full time, so he did interview for the
at Ohio University.
Yeah, I think my own was Ohio University.
Ohio U. It was Ohio U.
Yeah, and but they've now pulled him out of that, and but in any event, he's a top-notch coach. I mean, it's a matter of time before he's picked up by somebody. But in any event, I do think that this one of the smarter things Marcus Freeman has done is surrounded himself with some really, really talented assistants. And every good head coach does that. They just don't accept anything less than the best. And he's done that in a short period of time. So again, hats off to him for that. But yeah, this will be an exciting game. I'm looking forward to it. Supposedly it's going to be a green out, even though the players are now wearing black uniforms?
Blue.
Blue
It's on
or?
the uniforms were on Twitter today. The whole
Okay,
black
so they
thing
did release
was a
them.
rumor
They were
spread.
commenting that they might be black, but
Rumor spread by a Twitter account with 900 followers or something like that. So that's
Blue
whole bunch
blue
of
pants
nothing.
too. Blue pants
What's
too.
what's that?
Blue pants too.
Gold, I think.
Oh,
So
so the
that's just regular
Any
traditional,
color.
football had a video short on Twitter with showing the uniforms like with the usual dark gold and the names on the back and a patch on the shoulder and stuff
Alright.
like that. So
Alright. back to normal. All right, good. I like to hear that.
hey, I'll put it this way: if we end up dressing like Purdue, we're going to play like Purdue. So
Yeah,
I'd much
right.
rather don't leave the black somewhere else.
Got that right. Cool.
What's the latest? You guys follow this stuff more closely than I do. Like in terms of, are we thinking 10,000 IU fans, 8,000 IU fans?
I think it's going to be about 8 to 10,000.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
it's going to be a
there'll be more than
spattering. You'll see a
3,500, that's
spattering
for
of
sure.
red
Yeah.
throughout this. I think it's going to be about 8 to 10, no more than that.
You know, we
Well,
really
one of
should
them's going to be
do,
sitting with me, so that's
we really
kind
should
of
do the
unavoidable.
English Premier League thing and just, have armed, police officers,
Yeah.
guard a section. And if you have any identifying clothing for the visiting team, you've got to go sit in that section no matter
Yep.
what.
No matter
I don't
what,
wanna see
right?
these- I don't want to see these little, I don't want to see these little red dots all over the place.
Yeah, I kind of think we're going to see that a little bit.
Yeah, we will.
Um,
We will.
And it's going to be like you say, it's going to be friends of guys that are wanting to go to the game. Like, oh, I'll bring
Mhm.
you. Yeah, it's great. It's going to be that kind of stuff that ends up doing it. So, but yeah.
Did you hear Sully's idea that didn't quite get executed?
No, what was that?
Which was
He wanted, I guess they got some, but not nearly enough. He wanted them to buy like 70,000 green rain ponchos for everybody to put over their winter wear, so that the entire stadium was green instead of these stupid, Pittsburgh Steeler towels that they're going to be waving
Yeah,
in this mustard yellow. Give me a
No.
break.
Yeah, those pullover things are like $1.50.
Right.
Yeah,
Why don't they get the green glow sticks that they have at the basketball games? That'd be
yeah,
better
that's
than,
kind of cool.
Yeah.
I would
stupid
agree.
towels.
Somebody else did the glow sticks. I'm trying to think who did that, but it looked pretty cool. I saw it. They turned the lights off, and it was really cool.
Yeah, at the women's UConn game, they had those, and it was.
Did they? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But anyways,
Cool.
have to see.
All right, we got to leave it there. You've been listening to Dome and Domer, an online conversation about Notre Dame sports from a fan's perspective. For Ed Jernanek, Mike Coffey, I'm Mike Brammer. Thanks for listening.